Hi, Michael. Thank you very much indeed for inviting me on this webinar, and thank you everybody for tuning in. Okay, so in this webinar, I'd like to share some ideas, an introduction, if you like, to what I call lifestyle financial planning. I'm Paul Armson, the CEO of Inspiring Advisors. It's an online training community I created several years ago, and the creator of the Lifestyle Financial Planning 7-Step Success System, which I'll mention to you later. First of all, an apology if I may. I do tend to drop the odd swear word, so I hope you don't mind if I occasionally let one slip. I do apologise. I'm passionate about this stuff, as you'll hopefully see. Another apology, at no time in this presentation do I wish to appear to be teaching Granny how to suck eggs, I think the saying is. I know tuning in will be a lot of people who are very experienced, and some of you may be far more experienced and far more successful than me, so at no time do I want to appear to be talking down to you or teaching you, as I say, to suck eggs. So I just hope you'll find something valuable from what I have to share. Okay, so in the time available, what I hope to cover, at least not, if not cover, then at least touch on and give you a flavour of some of the ideas and philosophy that I've got, and some of the methodologies that advisors are now using to their advantage. These are ideas and techniques that I personally used. They're proven, they work, and they really do get the message across to clients about what real financial planning is and the power of being able to show clients what their financial future looks like. So the first thing I want to get across then is how to get and keep the focus on what matters most. You'll know as well as I do that the financial services industry really doesn't care too much about your clients. It really only wants to sell financial products and investments. That's what the industry wants. But what is it the clients want? We need to get the clients' focus and keep their focus on what matters most to them. How to demonstrate more value. I think now more than ever before, certainly around the world, fees and commissions are becoming far more transparent, consumers are getting more savvy, and costs are being looked at with the advent of robo. So now more than ever before, we need to deliver incredible value, not just in year one, but every single year, knocking clients' socks off by helping them to get the life that they want. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Next thing is how to bring a real sense of urgency to financial planning. This is really important because when you're looking at financial planning, you can put financial planning off forever, and clients often will do that if there's a fee associated with it. So we need to be really careful about how we communicate and bring a sense of urgency to clients as to why they need to act now when it comes to planning their financial future. How to line up the use of great software. Now, I'm a specialist in helping join the dots, if you will, in a financial planning process and create an elegant link from what should be a real client-focused discovery meeting, the transition then to move that client towards the use of great financial planning software to help those clients to see for themselves what their financial future looks like. So I'll be touching on that today. Again, as I say, I covered this in full depth in my training program, but we're going to share some ideas today. And I'll just touch on as well how to pitch bigger fees. I believe I'm a big fan of having less clients who pay you more money. It's your life too, so therefore we need to make sure we get paid well for the amazing work that we do. Okay, so what I'll now do is just give you a brief overview of my story and how I became a financial advisor. I fell into the job of a financial advisor in 1982, which sort of dates me a little bit. I left school, before then I left school to be an apprentice carpenter at the age of 16. Realised that if I wanted to get on in life, I had to get off the tools and I trained then to become a trainee quantity surveyor. And it was whilst I was working as a trainee quantity surveyor, I saw this job advertised in a newspaper that said, "Are you of above average intelligence and wish to earn a 6-figure income in the next 5 years?" Now I saw this ad and I thought to myself, I'm not sure about the first part of that ad, but I know damn sure about the second part. So I made a telephone call, and guess what? Back in the 80s, I'm not sure what it was like in Canada, but in the UK, certainly, if you applied for a job in financial services as a financial advisor, everybody got the job. You only had to breathe on a mirror. I think it was a mirror test. You breathe on a mirror, and if the mirror misses up, then you got the job. And I got the job. So that was in 1982, and I spent the first 8 years of my life learning my trade, getting more qualified. But basically, I realized I was basically a busy fool. But that's what it was. I was doing mortgages, insurances, pensions, seeing people daytime, in the evening, weekends, all those things. I must admit, I was achieving great success compared to what I had before. I had nice cars, nice houses, great holidays, and it was great. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And yeah, I was. It was the 80s, so that was in England. It was Thatcher's Britain. So things were going great, but then all of a sudden something happened that really changed my life now looking back. And it certainly changed my world as a financial advisor in a really quite strange way. And I like to tell this story because it's really maybe wake up to what this job that we do is really all about. What happened was this, that suddenly my mum died suddenly. Okay, so I was 29 and suddenly my mum died. Now, people lose their mums all the time, but what happened to me was this. I suddenly witnessed my dad in terrible regret and grief that suddenly the only woman he'd ever really loved had died. And he wasn't expecting that, because he'd spent 30 or 40 years of his life working really, really hard for us as a family, always out there working. He was a welder in a factory. So he worked in a factory. And when he wasn't working in the factory, in the evenings in the summer, he'd go and do jobs in people's, cut people's lawns, he'd cut their hedges, he'd do gardening jobs to earn extra money. And then when he wasn't doing that, he would be painting people's houses, he'd be cleaning their windows, he'd be doing all these things to earn extra money for us as a family. Now, my dad therefore had a great work ethic, and therefore I grew up witnessing my dad. And therefore, when I left school, I got this message from my dad that you work hard, sonny boy, you know, and I went out and I worked really, really hard. And you can certainly work really hard in financial services. You may have noticed that. So that's why I did so well quite quickly, because I worked bloody hard, thanks to my dad's work ethic. But suddenly my mum's gone and my dad is now living in this regret, because I can remember my dad one day coming home from the factory, whizzing into the house, getting changed from his overalls, his work overalls, into his gardening gear, and racing out of the house to go and do a gardening job. But on the way out, my mum said to him, what time will you be back for your tea, Derek? What time will you be back home for your meal? And my dad said, I don't know, some from a late time. And I could tell my mum was a little bit irritated by this. But basically, my dad then said, I'm doing this for us, Mary. I'm doing this for us. When I've retired, I'll have plenty of time. We'll have plenty of time together to do stuff. But right now, I've got to go to work. And I always remember that moment, because that to me embedded this idea that work comes first, you know. So suddenly, my dad's gone to work again and my mum's left alone. So I think she was quite a lonely lady, really, because my dad was always at work. And then suddenly, she's gone. My dad was at the factory when the telephone rang and the foreman came over to my dad and said, something's happened to Mary, Derek, you better get back home fast. So by the time my dad had got home, my mum was dead. Okay, she'd gone. So obviously that knocked me about somewhat. I was distraught because that was the first person in my life that mattered to die. But also I started to witness this incredible grief with my dad, and he started saying things like, if only, and he still said those. He's now 90, he was 90 a few weeks ago. And he still says those same things now. If only I'd done this. If only I'd spent more time with your mum, Paul. If only I'd bought him more flowers. If only, if only, if only. It's always been a thing that he's been talking and saying ever since the moment my mum died. Now, then what happened was this. My mum is dead. I'm then suddenly face to face with this idea that life is not a rehearsal. I'm witnessing my dad having never really been with my mum. And I look in the mirror and I actually see this guy looking back at me who's making the same mistake as my dad. Because I wasn't spending time with my family. I was always out working. I was doing all the things my dad did in financial services. So I was never there with my mum, with my children and my wife as much as I could have been. And even when I was at home, my head was often somewhere else. I'd be thinking about work or my business and something like that. So suddenly I just started to realize that I was making the same mistake as my dad. And I made a decision there and then, when I witnessed this feeling, that things are going to change around here. From now on, I'm not going to work weekends ever. I'm not going to take work home. And I'm also going to make sure I plan time off before I plan time on. In other words, book time off before you book time on. And I got really good at that. And that's why I spend 6 months of my time now sailing and 6 months working. And I endorse that to all of you. Anyway, the reason why I'm mentioning this is that two things then. I started to realize that life's not a rehearsal, and I would just try and remind you tuning into this that you do realize that, don't you? That life is not a rehearsal. Precious time is slipping away. And the older you get, the faster time seems to go. I started to realize that at the age of 30, and I'm so glad I did. But the next thing that happened to me was this. A few weeks after my mother had died, I went to see my first client, a prospective client, about financial advice. And I went to see this couple who are close to 60, about looking to retire effectively in a few years' time. And I couldn't help but notice in the conversation, in my first meeting, my fact-finding meeting with this client, I couldn't help but notice when I was asking them about what they wanted to achieve and what they wanted out of life and things, which is what I was taught to do when I first joined financial services, I started to notice them saying these words. One day, Paul, we'd like to do this. And one day, Paul, we'd like to do that. And they were both joining in by talking about the things they would like to do one day. Now, I'd already started to get this feeling of noticing the amount of wealth that they had and the money that they had. I just started to realize that actually you could probably do these things right now. And they kept saying one day, one day. And I actually did slam the table in that meeting and said, excuse me, what do you mean by one day? And I must admit, I was a little bit rude. I felt I'd been a bit rude. And I basically put them on the spot and said, why not do these things now? You're not getting any younger. Why not do these things now? And it went dead quiet. Now, what happened was then I realized that I might have been a little bit too forward in that statement. And I then apologized to them. And I explained the reason why I said that is that my dad would give anything to have one more day with my mum. But it's too late. She's gone. And now he's left with terrible regret. And they're never going to be able to do the sort of things that they would love to have done had they had the time and the money. Now, these people had all the time, potentially time, and certainly all the money to do all these things right now. So why were they putting these things off? And I explained that to them. And I said, why not do these things now? And they said, but Paul, can we afford to do these things now? Now, that was a penny dropping moment for me, because just before then, I'd taken on what seemed to be quite a leap of faith in signing up for some software, which is very similar to VisionWorks. Okay, it's in the UK. It was called Presswood Software, and it was cash flow modeling software that was very in depth. It covered everything: tax, charges, investment return, everything you could think of. And I'd taken this software on, but I hadn't really got around to using it yet. But this client made me get to the bottom of using it. And the bottom line was that when I went back to see these clients, I could help them to see what their financial future looked like and help them to see that they were never going to run out of money ever, even if they stopped work now. And if we started to do some of these things now, again, they could really afford to do these things and do stuff. They weren't happy in their work, They weren't happy in their jobs, yet they were putting off doing stuff when they could actually do it now. Now, the reason why I mention that is suddenly the penny had dropped for me massively, because I realized, because of the death of my mom and because of my new mindset about life not being a rehearsal, and hearing how clients mention this on a regular basis, suddenly I realized that my job was not to peddle financial products on behalf of the investment industry, which arguably I'd been doing up until that moment. In that moment, I realized that my purpose was to help clients to get and do stuff in the time they've got left on this planet. That's my job. That was I suddenly realized that's my purpose. And when you're armed with the right software that can help clients to make sensible decisions about doing stuff while they can, then boy, oh boy, that becomes one hell of a service proposition to then get into your head and into your heart, which is what I then did. So that's the penny dropping moment for me then. Two things. One, life isn't a rehearsal. Precious time is slipping away. I woke up to that fact because of my mom dying, okay? But also, that is a fact that nobody can deny. Not you, not me, not Michael, not any one of your clients. None of your clients can deny the fact that life is not a rehearsal. So I decided then, hang on a second, why don't I build a proposition around that very fact? Because then no client can argue what I stand for. Whereas most advisors I found build a service proposition and service proposition revolving around the industry and its products and investments and performance and stuff like that. But every client can argue with that. If you go to see a client and say, here's what you should do, here's a new fund for you, here's something I recommend, there's an argument just waiting to happen there, because are you sure that's the right thing to do? But nobody can argue with the idea that life is not a rehearsal. And therefore, it's my job I believe it's every advisor's job to basically get and understand what a client's trying to achieve and then help them to achieve those things in the time they've got left on this planet. Ideally, of course, without running out of money or dying with too much. And this is what we can model with great software. Now, this thing about life not being a rehearsal, okay? This is how we bring a sense of urgency to financial planning. Life is not a rehearsal, precious time is slipping away. But what we tend to do, most of us, is we forget that fact. We go through our daily life, I'm sure you do, we all do, busy, okay? We go through our life busy. And quite often, what happens is this. We go through our life, we're here in our life right now, okay? I hope you can see my hands here in the video. But we go through our life here right now, and over here somewhere is our death. We know we're going to die. You know you're going to die, don't you? Okay? So over here, we've got our death. We're here now, busy, and we know we're going to die one day, right? But we're so busy here now, often distracted from the reality of our death, and often distracted from the current moment because we're so busy in our heads thinking about the past or the future. We're here busy, and we make the mistake of thinking that we're going through our life like this. Yeah, Paul, I'm going to die one day. Yeah, of course I'm going to die one day. I'm not stupid, Paul, come on. And you go through life thinking that this is what's going to happen. But of course, that's what's really happening. We're getting closer and closer. And I've noticed, and I don't know about you, but I've noticed that as you get older, time just seems to go faster and faster and faster. And it's hard to believe now it's 2020. The millennium was when? Not that long ago, really. And it's kind of scary. And I started to find a way of communicating this to clients. And it was a way that really resonated. I didn't say it to every client because it wasn't always necessary. But whenever I could, I tried to get the conversation going about their views about life not being a rehearsal. And they noticed how time seems to be speeding up. And one of the little stories I used to tell clients, and I'll share it with you now, is that I used to ask clients if they've ever been on a holiday for a two-week holiday. And most people would say yes, of course they would. And I'm sure you would too. So let me try and role play this with you now, right? Have you ever been on holiday for 2 weeks? Yes, you have. I know you have, right? Now, imagine the scene then. You go on a holiday for 2 weeks from Saturday to Saturday. Now, imagine the first day. You're up early in the morning and you then spend possibly the whole of your first day, your first Saturday, traveling to get to your destination, to your hotel. Now, by the time you get to the hotel, you're probably knackered. You just want to get to bed, basically. You want to get to sleep. Now, the next morning, it's the first Sunday of your holiday. You wake up early and you think to yourself, well, first of all, you might think to yourself, where am I? But the next thing you think to yourself, great, I'm on a holiday. I've got 2 weeks to enjoy myself. And then off you go to enjoy yourself, okay? Have you had this feeling, okay? Now, after a while, that seems to go on forever, it's Wednesday of the first week. And you remind yourself, you think, hang on, it's only Wednesday. I feel like I've been on holiday forever, but it's only Wednesday. And I've got another week and a half left of this. I've got another week and a half left to enjoy myself. And off you go and have more fun. Then after a while, which again seems to last forever, it's Saturday at the end of your first week. And you think to yourself, that first week was great. It was brilliant. And I've got another week left. And off you go to enjoy yourself. But then all of a sudden, bang, you're on the plane home. Now, I don't know if anyone has ever experienced this feeling, but I certainly have. I often think to myself, where did that second week go? It was all going so well and so slow, but then all of a sudden it's over. That's life. And again, I don't know what the age profile is of people tuning into this, but if you're over 40 or over 45, guess what? You're well into your second week. Now, I don't know if that resonates with anybody here, but have you noticed, if you are over 40, 45, have you noticed it's speeding up? Now, I can't hear you talk to me, right? But I'm guessing that you can resonate with that. Now, if you're under 40 or under 45, under 40, you might not yet have noticed how life is speeding up. But boy, oh boy, you'll think of this weird guy on a webinar once who's told you that life's on rehearsal, right? So we've got to do stuff now while we still can, right? We've got to be an inspiration to our clients, I think. And I certainly set out then to start living my life on purpose and doing stuff and climbing mountains and sailing seas while I'm still fit and able to do so. And I urge you to do the same. But more importantly, I urge your clients to do the same. So This idea then that life is not a rehearsal, precious time is slipping away. This is how we can connect with clients about something that's undisputable. And it means we can use that as the excuse to find out what it is that's most important to them and what is it they want to achieve in the time they've got left on this planet. Okay, it really can add a great deal of purpose to the work that you do. So what I'd like to do now then is tell you how I made this transition. So what happened then? I'm using cash flow modeling, my true software, with every client every time. From that point forward, I call it telling people the truth about money. That's what I call using cash flow modeling tools like VisionWorks, like True Software. When you use that software and you're engaging with clients about their life, and you're really helping those clients to see where they're heading financially, and you're finding out from those clients what it is they're trying to achieve, and then you're helping them to see what needs to be done to achieve those things, and you're showing them how to get and keep the life they say they want, then that's what I call the truth about money. And I started to say to people that my job is to tell my clients the truth about money. You may not always want to hear the truth, but it's my job to do so. Now, so I'm doing this with my clients. I'm doing much, much better as a lifestyle financial planner. I start to call it lifestyle financial planning, okay? Because at the end of the day, what drives a financial plan is lifestyle, okay? It's as simple as that. And the thing about lifestyle is, if I focus my service proposition, my financial planning, if I focus it as lifestyle financial planning is financial planning with an end in mind. And the end is a better life for your clients, okay? It's basically helping clients to get and keep the life that they want. That's what lifestyle financial planning is all about. It's helping people to identify, achieve, and maintain their desired lifestyle. Helping them to do the things they want to do before it's too late, quite simply, okay? That's lifestyle financial planning, aided by you telling people the truth about money. Now, I'm doing this then, and I'm now doing this for every client, every time. Clients are happy to pay me bigger fees. They refer me more often, and things are going absolutely great. And then I go on a Michael Gerber. Now, I'm assuming you've heard of Michael Gerber. If you haven't yet read The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, I recommend you do so. Brilliant book. And in this book, Michael Gerber talks about creating systems and processes and ways of doing things. So I wanted to try and create a service proposition that could be delivered to every client every time in a very consistent manner, because I didn't want clients dictating to me how I run my life and how I run my business. I'm the one who's in charge of my life. I'm the one who's in charge of my business. Therefore, I want to be making sure that clients can go through my process where everyone gets the same experience. So my back office staff can deliver a great service because they know what each client has gone through, if that makes sense. So I go on a Michael Gerber 2.5 day workshop in London. And Michael Gerber is talking about doing surveys. And he's talking about the power of surveying your clients on a regular basis to find out what they really feel. And I got the idea then to do a survey with all my clients. Now, at the time, there were only about 100 clients that I had, and I never really had any more than 100 clients ever. And he was, I wanted to do this survey. And Michael Gerber said, if ever you do a survey with your clients, make sure you survey them with questions that you don't want to hear the answers to. Okay, now that's a good tip, right? Don't ask questions that you want to hear the answers to. Ask questions you don't always want to hear the answers to. In other words, the painful questions. So I composed this survey for my clients to ask them everything about what they felt about my service, my first meeting, how I started the first meeting, the questions that I asked, how I finished the first meeting, how I started a second meeting, what they think of my software, and what they think about the fees that I charged, the commissions I received, my paperwork, my printed financial plans. Guess what? They didn't read them. And that's from that moment forward, I stopped printing financial plans. Sorry about this, Michael, but no one reads them. They're out of date as soon as you print them, I realized. So I got this survey prepared and I sent it out, and I got back about 40, 45, 50% came back to me with some great feedback. I really appreciated the answers that I got. But one questionnaire came back to me with, I'll hold this up, I haven't got a marker pen here, but it was basically, it came back to me, and on the front of it, with a big blue marker pen all over the front of it, it said, haven't got time to fill this in, call me, Jimmy. Now, Jimmy was one of my best and favorite clients. And the way he'd written the response on his survey worried me. I felt like I'd upset him somewhat. So I phoned him up. I plucked up courage and phoned Jimmy up and said, Jimmy, you didn't fill in my survey. Can you tell me why? And he said, Paul, I didn't fill your survey in for one simple reason. You kept referring to yourself as a financial advisor. And I don't see you as my financial advisor. You see, I'm betting, Paul, if you're going around calling yourself a financial advisor, you're probably scaring off more people than you're taking on. And that was true, by the way. I don't know about you, but I found that at a dinner party, if you just say you're a financial advisor, it's a great way to clear the room. And that's what I was having. The problem of saying you're a financial advisor, when people say, what's your job? What do you do? It was always scary. So Jimmy was basically saying to me that he didn't really regard me as his financial advisor. He said, I regard you, Paul, more as my life planner, because you've helped me to plan my life. And without you, I wouldn't be doing any of the things really that I've been able to achieve in the last 5 or 6 years with your help. And all the things I'm going to do in the future, thanks to you and your help. You're not a financial advisor, Paul. You are a life planner. And I thought I'd mention that to you because I think you're missing the point. And you know what? I thought to myself, my God. Wow. Thanks, Jimmy. And he said, why don't you phone up your other best clients and find out if they feel the same way too? So I then hastily did that. I phoned my better clients and said, I've got this weird client. He thinks of me more of his life planner than he does my financial, than his financial advisor. What do you think? And they all agreed. So all of a sudden then, this term life planner starts coming to me. This is like early 90s, by the way. This is like 2 or 3 years after using cash flow modeling well consistently. Suddenly this idea of being a life planner came about. And I started to realize then there's actually 3 parts to my job. Now, every great financial advisor wears what I call 3 hats. And I'll just share this with you now. And this, if you could capture the power of this, I reckon it's a great way of you being able to justify much, much higher fees, potentially treble your fees, treble your fee income, and just hold your head high and really control your service proposition from this point forward. So I'm going to talk you through these 3 hats in a second, but there's basically 3 hats that great financial advisors, great financial planners wear. And to help me to get this across to you, I've prepared something, and I'm hoping you can see it. So excuse the noise while I drag this into view. But I've created it. Can you see that there? Is that Mike? Okay, Michael, can you see that? I'm assuming you can. So I prepared this earlier, and this is to help get across to you the 3 really, really important roles that you fulfill for your clients. Now, all this is in the guise then of what I call lifestyle financial planning, okay? And this is a way, arguably, for you to reposition yourself in the eyes of your clients if you get this right. What I want to do first of all, though, is I mentioned you wear 3 hats. Let me introduce you to the least important hat that you wear, okay? And that hat, the least important hat that you wear, is that of a financial advisor, okay? Hope you can see that up here. Now, so what I would say to clients is this. Let's assume I'm seeing a new prospective client for the first time. I would explain to them that I'm an alternative financial advisor, okay? I try and do the complete opposite to most financial advisors. For starters, I tell people the truth, okay? The truth about money. Now, the reason I'm alternative is because of the 3 parts to my job. The first, I wear 3 hats, okay? The first hat that I wear is that of a life planner, okay? Life planner. The second hat that I wear is that of a financial planner. And the third hat that I wear is that of a financial advisor. Let me explain to you what these are. When I'm wearing my life planning hat, I'm finding out about you. It's about where you are in your life right now and how you got here. What's your story? What have you been through to arrive at this state of your life now? And when I've understood a little bit about you and your story and got to understand where you are in your life now, I'm then interested in your future story. What is it that you want to do in the time you've got left on this planet? In particular, what sort of lifestyle do you enjoy now, and what sort of lifestyle would you like to continue to enjoy in the future? What sort of things do you want to do between now and the time that you're dead in a box? That's what I call life planning, okay? When I understand what you're trying to achieve, I'll take off my life planner's hat and put on my next hat, which is that of a financial planner. The financial planner's job is to crunch some numbers quite simply. It's to look at the resources available to you now. It's also to identify the resources that will be coming to you in the future, i.e. future inflows and future incomes and so on. But also it's to identify the resources that might have to come available to you in order to satisfy the needs of your life plan, okay? That is financial planning. I'll talk about that more in a second. Now, if that financial plan indicates that you need a financial product, if it does, then and only then will I put on my third and least important hat, which is that of a financial advisor. Now, I've got to tell you, when I first started using that script, for want of a better word, and explaining to clients there's more to me than just being one of these, clients would often say, oh, so you're not here to sell me anything then? And the answer is no. Who says you even need a financial product? You see, Mr. Client, until I know about you, I don't feel I've got any right whatsoever to talk about your money or tell you what to do with it. That, I promise you, is a differentiator. And that's what you can do when you truly wear the three hats, okay? So let's just rewind slightly. Let's look at the least important hat first of all. What is financial advice, okay? Because it's a really important thing that we get this clear in our heads. Because what I'm sharing with you now is something that clients really, really, really understand and get. Unfortunately, the industry doesn't get this, okay? I'll explain why in a second. Unfortunately, a lot of advisors don't get this, but clients get this straight away because this is how the job should always have been done, okay? Let's just talk about what is financial advice then, okay? The first thing I would say is that financial advice is anything to do with any form of financial product or investment, okay? I made a list for you earlier. So those are the sort of things that I regard as financial advice. When you talk about investments, when you choose investments, when you recommend investments or pensions or retirement products, or you talk about life insurance or health insurance or mortgages or risk profiling or trusts or rebalancing a portfolio or a savings plan or asset allocation, all of that in my head and in my heart is financial advice. That's all it is. It's financial advice. And to be honest with you, it's pretty damn boring. Clients really aren't interested in any of this stuff here. But guess where the industry wants you to stay focused? Here. The industry wants to keep your attention here all the time because it's got its stuff to sell. So I don't know if it's in Canada, but in the UK, there are loads and loads of financial trade publications, Financial Advisor magazine, newspapers, money marketing. I write for a couple of them. And they're just full of ads for financial products and news about financial products and new funds and stuff. But none of that really is going to change your client's life. None of that is going to change your client's life. They're just what I call tools in the bag. Okay, that's all these are. They're tools in the bag to get the job done. Okay, that's all they are. I'll come back to that in a second. I will just say this. There are lots of people out there who call themselves financial planners. Many of them are certified financial planners, but all they ever do is that. And they pay lip service to the other two hats. All they're doing is going around talking about and often just peddling financial products. They're not financial planners at all. And they're certainly not lifestyle financial planners. And this is where I upset people, okay? But that's true. And it's something we've got to stop because it's no good changing your job title from financial advisor to financial planner if you don't change what you actually do. So I'm a big advocate for getting advisors to wake up and realize we've got one chance now with Robo coming to really demonstrate what it is we bring to the table. Let's look at the first part of the job then. Let's just look at life planner. What's a life planner? I mentioned this to you a few minutes ago, right? But it's this, it's your client's life, right? That's life planning is you asking great questions and being interested, curious, arguably, about your client. Where they're now, how did they get to where they are now, and where they're trying to get to in the future. And I always say, make sure when you're uncovering a client's circumstances, always talk about the current moment, yes, of course, but also always go back first. Find out about their past story, before you start talking about their goals. I hate the term goals. I'd rather talk in terms of possibilities. People will talk about possibilities more than they will goals. You start asking a client what their goals are, and you're probably going to get a deer in the headlight look. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, where clients just don't know what they want. And what they say today will probably be very different tomorrow. So we've got to make sure we talk about what clients really want. So life planning then, it's all about your client, and it's all about their story, okay? We've all got a story. I've got a story, and you've got a story. Now, the great thing about this is nobody probably is interested in your client's story. Your client is probably a lonely individual. In reality, we all are. We all suffer from the human condition. It's our ego makes us think about ourselves most of the time. So the chances are nobody really has expressed that much interest in your client until you turn up. And then you start being really, really interested in their life, their story, where they are now, where they're trying to get to, and so on. We have a fantastic opportunity to really connect with another human being about what's important to them. And if they realize that you're interested in them more than you are their money, guess what? They'll trust you with all of their money. And that's the opportunity that you've got when you do this in the right order. Okay. So the other part of this then is this. You know, one of the things we've all got to try, one of the things that we do as financial planners is help clients to answer this question, which I'll come into in a second here, of enough, right? In fact, I wrote a book on it. And this book here, I'll just wave it in front of you because I'd like to send you one. I wrote a book here called Enough, How Much Money Do You Need for the Rest of Your Life? And this is an inspiring book about financial planning, and it gets people to reach out for it. So this is a marketing tool for members of my Inspiring Advisors group that they give to their clients or prospective clients to explain what it is what this is all about effectively. And it gets clients reaching out for proper financial planning, as I call it. Now, it's all about enough, right? But enough for what? Until we can start doing financial planning, we've got to work out this here, enough for what? What is it you're trying to achieve? Because until I know what you're trying to achieve, how can I build a financial plan to help you to get enough, you know? So let's now go on to the second hat, okay? So when I've done this, this will be my first meeting with a client, okay? So my first meeting with a client would be me engaging with them about them. Now there's a skill in doing this, of course, because the danger is a client can come to you thinking you're a financial advisor, often with this on their mind. Okay. And I've seen so many otherwise good financial planners get caught in what I call the transaction trap, where they end up talking about this stuff here because they've had 20 years of doing so often. Okay. And they never quite get around to doing all three hats because they get caught here. And what happens is they take on too many clients who don't pay them enough money. They become a busy fool and they fail their purpose. They're not delivering what really they're on this planet to do, in my view. Okay, they're just a financial advisor, and financial advice is great. If you just want to be a financial advisor, be a financial advisor, but don't ever call yourself a financial planner if you ain't doing this. That's my view. I told you upset people, didn't I? Okay, so what is financial planning? As I say, financial planning is answering this question: how much is enough? Now, enough for what? Okay, we've got to now use, and this is the opportunity that you've got available to you on this call, is I believe all of you, if not most of you, use Michael's software. Now, I've looked at Michael's software and I see it as a very similar quality tool to the one I used for many years in the UK called Presswood Software. Okay, it's now called True Software because I got them to rebrand it. Now, in other words, it enables you to help clients to work out the answer to that question. But what drives enough? Now, let me show you another little quick excerpt here. Now, I'm hoping you can see this. This basically is a lifeline from now. This is an imaginary client, okay? Imaginary client from now to age 100. Let's say death over here. Let's put a coffin on here, okay? There we go. That's the end of their life there. Now, What you can see here probably is blues, which is money coming in, income. In other words, income coming into their life between now and when they retire. Then probably when they retire, they have less blue coming in. So blue is money coming in here. These are inflows each year, which hopefully you can see. And red, in this example, is money going out. In other words, their expenditures. So here we can see their expenditures going out, being less than they're currently earning at the moment. Then when they retire, let's say this client here wants to do stuff while they're still fit and able to do so, which as an advisor, you should be an inspiration to help them to do stuff. So let's say they want to have some great time traveling for the first 5 or 10 years of their retirement. So it could be they spend a lot more here than they do in later life. So we've got higher expenditure in the early retirement while they're still fit and able to do so, and then less expenditure when they become what I call too old to enjoy themselves, okay? Because we all get to that stage where our knees are gone, our hips are gone, we're worn out and we're knackered, okay? That happened, it's happening to me already. So this then is a profile of their expenditure, okay? Now what VisionWorks will help you to do, of course, is find out what's going to happen then to their money. Based on these expenditure requirements to live the life that they want, what's going to happen to their wealth? Now, I found in my years of doing this lifestyle financial planning lot, there are only 3 types of clients you're ever going to come across. Oops, 3. That's all there is out there. In the marketplace, there's only 3 types of clients. And I believe it's your job to find out and sense as soon as possible who you're dealing with. Are they, first of all, what I call a not enough? In other words, their money here is going to go up during this period here when they're spending more, they're earning more than they're spending, and then it rapidly goes down and it runs out. Hence the red line below the line here. In other words, these are not enough. They're going to run out of money. That means they can't afford to live the life that they say they want. So your job now is to help them to understand, first of all, how much is enough, yeah? So they can accumulate more or work more hours or whatever it might be, or reduce their expenditure to help them to accumulate sufficient money to secure their financial future, okay? That's your job with a not enough. The second type of client you're going to come across, and I bet you've got some of these already, is what I call a got too much. Now, a got too much is somebody whose wealth is going to grow and grow and grow and grow, as illustrated, no doubt, by VisionWorks, and they're going to go to their grave over here with way too much money. Now, I regard that as a severe problem. People thinking not having enough money is a problem. Well, I would say to clients that having too much is a bigger problem. Let me explain why. If you're a got too much client here, what that means is you're going to go to your grave here with way, way too much money. First thing in the UK is a substantial amount of inheritance tax is likely to be paid if you leave too much money behind. So that's one problem, is tax. But tax, Mr. Client, isn't really a problem for you. You're dead. It's a problem for your kids maybe, your children maybe, but it's not your problem because you're dead. Your problem, Mr. Client, if you're got too much, is that you're lying on your deathbed here with too much money and no time. And you're thinking to yourself, damn, I could have done stuff. I could have retired at 60 instead of 65. I could have helped my children out when they needed some support. I could have given some money to my children with warm hands rather than cold hands, which is a lovely line I've come across recently. I could have enjoyed first-class travel. I could have bought that yacht. I could have had more time out to do the things that I wanted to do, but instead, I didn't. And now here I am with all the money in all the world, but no time. Damn. Your job is to make sure it doesn't happen to your clients. They shouldn't be dying as got too much time clients. You should be helping them to enjoy their wealth with confidence, knowing they're going to be okay. That's what this is really all about. It's helping them to give more, do more, spend more, gift more, of course. It's all here. Leave something behind you with your wealth that you feel great about. Do stuff while you still can. That's a got too much. And finally, the third type of person, all of this is covered in this book, by the way. The third type of person that you've got as clients are what I call, they're not enough. They're not got too much. What could they possibly be? They, hopefully you can see that, are just rights. So these are people with just the right amount of money for the rest of their life. They're going to be okay. They are never going to run out of money. They needn't worry about money ever again. There's only one slight problem. They don't know that because no one's helped them to see that. So this is the thing. Imagine if you're a just right type of person, you've got just about the right amount of money for the rest of your life. Based on prudent assumptions, you're going to be okay. But you never knew that. What would happen? You would probably go through your life probably not spending when you could easily afford to do so. Or you might spend and then feel guilty. Or you might work more years than you need to because you think you do. Or you might take more risk with your investments trying to achieve more growth because you always feel like you need more. And that means less peace of mind, more worry about the markets. Well, actually, you're going to be okay. Let me prove and demonstrate this to you. And that is the power of using great software with clients. So that is the 3 hats. Does that make sense? Life planning, financial advice. And it should be done in this order. So this can only happen first. In my world, that's my first meeting with the client, to get to know them, to build trust and rapport. And also, by the way, I've got to decide whether I want that client in my life or not, because life's not a rehearsal, remember. I've got a limited amount of time on this planet personally, so therefore I'm only going to let into my client base clients that I want to spend my time with, and you should be the same too, I'm guessing. So this is the first meeting. When I've understood that client's real circumstances and they've told me everything if you do this right, clients will tell you stuff they've never told anybody else before, ever. They just trust you with this information because you're demonstrating your interest is in them, not their money. So when you've done this, now you've got all the information that you need to go away and build your financial plan using your software. Okay, now there's a bit of work in between, we know that. I'm not going to bore anybody with that. You need to get expenditure questionnaires completed. You need to get confirmation of their assets and liabilities. All of that's our job. So then at the second meeting, I would now introduce them to what their financial future looks like. Now I've created a great presentation, which time is limited now, so I can't share that with you. But at the end of this first meeting here, at the end of the very first meeting, I explain to clients what real financial planning is all about in a really empowering way, where clients go, wow, why don't all financial advisors do this? And I promise you, when people say that to you, you're not going to have any problem pitching your fees, because you can tell it's a unique experience for them. Now, I can't do that today, but I'll tell you about that in a second. Then we move to the second meeting and show that client what all that means. And then at the end of the second meeting, when we've established where they're heading financially, and they're seeing their future like they've never seen it before ever with the help of the software, then it's then a matter of saying, well, it now looks like we need to do some form of investment or savings or protection or whatever it may be. I don't even know who we're going to use yet from a financial product point of view. So between now and our next meeting, I will go away and put on my financial advisor hat to identify the right product to suit the needs of your financial plan. And that will be my third meeting. When I go back to that third meeting here, when we're going to implement the financial products that they need, guess what? Clients don't really much care about those financial products. They often just say, look, where do I sign? I'm not interested. Just give me the medicine is all they really want to do. So you haven't got to spend hours, and obviously you've got to do your compliance stuff, right? I'm not saying don't do that, but you haven't got to spend hours and hours and hours trying to justify this portfolio versus that portfolio. That is not necessary because you've done the job in this order. You've done it properly. Now, one of the little thing I'd like to mention here, as I say, the danger is a lot of advisors and planners, when they see this, they think, wow, that's going to really help me to keep the jobs apart. And what this will do, it will help you to have a more engaging first meeting, because there are ways to just park that. If you can park the financial product stuff, right, I promise you, you'll have more engaging meetings here. And then even in the second meeting, you still don't talk about your product stuff because we haven't got there yet. They're just tools in my bag, remember. Now, what happens with a client is this: if you have a whole meeting and you're not talking about financial products or trying to sell one or recommend one, guess what happens? They're thinking you're different, you're alternative, I feel safe with you. Then what happens is in the second meeting, you're still not trying to sell a financial product or recommend a financial product. You're doing the complete opposite to most financial advisors. The trust levels are going through the roof. You are demonstrating that your focus is totally on helping your client to get the life that they want. You're on their side. That will be done when it's necessary, okay? Now, this is really important because this is how I say, I call it stepping away from the industry. The industry is over there, right? The industry wants its stuff sold. But the industry, this stuff here is what gets advisors into trouble. That's in the UK. People selling financial products often for the sake of it have caused advisors a bad name. But the industry makes that happen, right? This is our way of saying financial products are necessary. Yes, they are. They're an important part of the job, but they're not that important. This is where the value is. This is where your value is. And therefore, suddenly, now compare yourself, right? If you're in competition with another advisor that just wears this hat here, who's worth more fees? You or them? You are, obviously, okay? Because you wear 3 hats and you can explain this to clients and demonstrate it. And all you have to do then is make sure you stick to the rules, okay? So that's the story of the 3 hats. And I promise you that can change your life. It certainly changed mine. Clients say, why don't all financial advisors do it this way? You can walk with your head held high. You get more referrals to better quality clients. And more importantly, guess what happens as well? You do an awful lot more financial services business. Because clients think, if you're doing this for me, if you're looking at my whole life, if you're looking after all of my affairs, I can't invest any money with anybody else. It's got to be looked after by you. So you get more assets under management, you can charge bigger fees, and everyone's happy. That's how this works, okay? Now, I'm going to stop in a second, I believe. Michael, I don't know how I'm doing for time here. I don't want to run over. You're not talking to me. He's gone away. Michael's walked off. Okay, so that's the 3 hats.
Paul, you're doing great.
Am I?
There we go.
How are we doing for time? I've run over.
Yeah, you're doing fine.
Do you want to turn this to Q&A now, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are 2 possibilities. We can either have people ask questions through the chat and I can just repeat them, or we could actually throw it wide open and let people speak up.
You're in charge.
Well, why don't we see if we can throw it wide open? And I'll see.
I'm not a Zoom specialist, so you may have more experience in doing this than me.
Not particularly, but I'm going to see if I can unmute everybody.
Certainly, post a question in the chat box would be a good starting point.
Okay. All right. Well, if anybody has a question, please use the chat feature and post your question there, and then I'll pass it on to Paul.
Hi, Michael. I unmuted myself. I thought I'd ask a question. Is that okay? Or do you
Oh,
want
yeah,
to...
sure. Absolutely, Jonathan. Go ahead.
All right. So Paul, first of all, this is very interesting. This is a lot of the information that we really need to implement this. We're an accounting firm. We do not do or recommend financial products of any kind.
Brilliant.
So we're going to be doing the life planning, financial planning on a fee-for basis. Now, you talked about tripling your fees. I'm assuming that's from the financial planning, life planning basis, correct?
Well, however you choose, when you deliver more and you do more and you're making your service to your client more meaningful and clients can feel the value, then you're very justified in charging your fees however you choose to be paid. One thing I often say to advisors is my way has always been to make it clear to the client or make the client understand that whatever fees you receive, if you wear 3 hats, by the way, if you do all 3 parts of the job, the fees that you receive are for the entire lifestyle financial planning experience, if that makes sense. Some advisors think, oh, I'll charge for a first meeting. Well, that's a crazy idea. I'll charge for a financial plan. Okay, how much will you charge for a financial plan? And then I'll get paid off the investments. And often what happens is this, they might charge a small amount of fee for the financial plan, hoping they're going to get a lot of money to invest. Now, the stupid thing about that is that suddenly, because the client realizes that you've got paid 10 times as much for that, the focus of their attention goes onto the money again. So it's called value transference, I call it. We've got to keep the value in here, okay? I'm not sure if that answered your question. I'm sorry about that, but.
Well, no, I guess I'm really fishing for like what, like right now we're examining a cost plus basis for this fee. We're looking to do it as a value package. So this would include their personal tax returns as well. And of course, some of these people that we're speaking to are business owners.
Mm-hmm.
So far, we've only purchased the VisionWorks personal component,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what we're going to be focusing on learning and using this year. But we want it to be about people, and in the end, that's where all the decisions matter, and that's who really matters, the end client. So what I'm trying to do is figure out how much we need to charge to make it worthwhile, because we have no trailing fees from the sales and financial products.
Yeah, it's got to stack up, hasn't it? Well, as accountants, you're probably more experienced in charging hourly rates and fees than most financial advisors, certainly in the UK. Most financial advisors in the UK, commissions have been banned over here for some time, apart from commission on protection. But most of them are still taking a percentage of assets under management, which of course wouldn't work for you. But at least you can justifiably say that you've got a rate for this. You see, one of the things that I found about this is clients won't be able to value it until they experience it. And it's a really important thing to get across here. Because
and that's often the first question is, how much is it going to cost me?
That's it. That's exactly right. And this again is where I've always worked on the basis, because I've got a, okay, so let's rewind slightly. Okay. As an accountant, talking to an accountant is different to me talking to financial advisors, because financial advisors often have got this to get paid from. But what I have built into my training course is, at the end of this first meeting with the client, is this demonstration and explanation of what real financial planning really is all about. And it's a diagram that I use that's tailored to what that client has told me in that first meeting. And then that creates the step into the transition into using cash flows, the software. And at the start of the second meeting, I will remind them of that diagram. In fact, I'll put that diagram on the table and remind them what we talked about. And that gets them back in the room. So now I can start going through the software, and it makes sense to them as to why we're doing that. So because of this great presentation I've got at the end of that first meeting, that's where clients say, wow, why don't all financial advisors do this? And that gives me the opportunity to pitch my fee. But even then, I tend to prefer to use what I call a risk reversal technique, where I pitch a fee and I explain to them, this is how we work. And we did this for all of our clients. There's no excuses, so that we just don't make any exceptions here. So we're going to do this work for you. But of course, we can't afford to do this work for nothing. So because of that, we'll be charging you a fee of X, but it comes with a guarantee that if we do this work for you and you don't appreciate it or value it, then you don't have to pay us. How does that sound? And that's what I call my risk reversal technique. In other words, it's me taking the risk for guiding them through this comprehensive financial planning service proposition. And then that enables me to pitch a slightly higher fee because I put this risk reversal in place. And guess what? You should knock their socks off. If you do this properly and help them to see their financial future and have conversations with them about what needs to happen to get and keep the life they want, they'll happily pay their fee, by the way. Okay. But the reason why I mentioned that risk reversal is some advisors do it the opposite way around. They say here, well, we'd like to do a financial plan for you. We'll charge you $700, for example. Okay. So that becomes a small fee. Even that can be off-putting when a client just wants his immediate problem fixed over here, you see. So I always say we've got to get clients over the hump to let them experience financial planning, proper financial planning. And then when they've experienced this, then they'll never want to go back. And of course, they'll tell all their friends about it because they've never seen anything like this before, ever. That's the sort of impact you want to try and have. I'm not sure if that helps you.
It gives me stuff to think about. We're definitely a non-traditional accounting firm. We don't do a lot of hourly work. We try to value price wherever possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm seeing like our first meeting would be the life planning meeting. Then we would introduce them to the VisionWorks PDF, which they provide to us. We'd go through and prepare like the basic financial plan, have another meeting, tweak it and get it to where they need it to be. And then, I mean, we can introduce them to financial advisors and so on, but like we get no profit from that segment as of now.
Sorry,
So
is
we
there
have
room
to
for some other questions here?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we should. Paul, can you just check and see if you need to re-click your share screen button? Somebody's saying that the video is gone.
My video's gone. Yeah, I think it's because you've shared your screen, have you, Michael?
Possibly. So can you?
Okay, I'll kill yours, and I'll go back to mine. Okay, share.
There we go. Yeah. Now we see my story. So I don't know if you can share your video.
If you just stop sharing, it should go back to speaker view.
Yeah, there we go. Am I back?
There we go. Yeah, that's good. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that.
Yeah, somebody asked if we could move on. Here's a question.
Thanks,
how long do you take for each of the 3 meetings with clients?
That's a really good question. Okay, so just a little bit of clarification about clients. Right. Okay. So I'll answer your question first, and I'll explain why. I mean, this first meeting here, it's definitely it's got to be at least an hour to 2 hours. I've had meetings here that have been 4 hours, and I'll explain why in a second. This financial planning meeting here would probably be around an hour to an hour and a half, probably an hour and a half, could be more. Depends on the client, obviously. And then this one here, again, depending on your compliance requirements and what you need to do to tick boxes and so on, that can be less than 10 minutes, or again, that could be 3 hours, but you want to keep that as painless as possible. But what you want to try and do is try and create a service proposition where the money piece, you try and keep as simple, low cost, and as low risk and as painless as possible, because they are just tools in the bag. What I decided to do on the basis of license on rehearsal, on the basis that, okay, so this thing here, okay, what's your story? One of the things that I decided to do many years ago was target small business owners within a 5 to 10 mile radius. So that's what I got good at doing. And over here in the UK, there's various software packages where you can easily source owners of small businesses, get their company accounts, find out, even now more these days, websites, LinkedIn. You could really get to know about a prospective client before you make an approach or contact with them. But the reason why I like small business owners is because of this. They've all got a story, right? So every small business owner has got a story, why they started a business. So when I meet with a client, one of my favorite questions to open this first meeting was, tell me, Michael, I understand you're in business for yourself. How do you get started in this business? And I just shut up and I'm all ears. And I let Michael speak. And then I say to Michael, tell me, Michael, I can appreciate you started that many years ago. What were you doing before? So what did you used to do? And then they tell me about their employed job and their pension benefits and their retirement benefits and their company car and all staff benefits that they had as an employee. And then I say to them, so you're telling me, Michael, that you gave all of that up, that security, to go and start your own business? And they're saying they did, yeah. And I take them back to the very moment, their proudest moment, when they took a risk to start that business. And basically what I'm doing is I just noticed that small business owners have got a story about their thing called their baby that they took a risk to start. And they would be, that's why it's so easy to create great rapport and really get a connection with people here. And that often then leads into that client or that business owner showing you around the factory, introducing to all their staff and so on. And that's why I mentioned that these meetings can go on a bit, because of course you're showing an interest in them that no one's ever done before. So that hasn't really answered your question, but I'm guessing you're talking about an hour and a half, an hour to an hour and a half, an hour to an hour and a half, and then whatever that takes, basically.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. You're preaching to the converted as far as we're concerned.
Great.
But you mentioned even some of us that share your philosophy from time to time get stuck in the advisor trap.
Yep.
But the clients also are trained by the industry and sometimes get stuck in the advisor trap, so that despite your best intentions at a life planner meeting, the client starts to push into product and that kind of conversation. I wondered if you could share some stories about your thoughts of how you keep that on track, you know, in the face of client driven advisor trap.
Okay, let's, that's a really good point, and I'm glad you raised that subject. It is one of the things that's holding back most financial planners from being absolutely great financial planners, is what I've noticed. Because, again, even things like this software, Michael's software, if a lot of advisors use software and have access to great software, but they're not using it with every client every time. And they would use the excuse that not every client deserves it, or not every client wants it, or there's some pushback, and they just end up doing this, which is similar to what you say. If we took a new prospect as an example, one of my favorite statements with a new prospective client would be, however they've come to me, I'll just share this with you if I may, because I prepared this earlier as well. Okay, so this is what I call my funnel. It's a very rough drawing, and you can't beat the quality of this presentation, can you? So the idea behind this is that I mentioned Michael Gerber earlier, and Michael Gerber is one for creating processes and systems and processes. So that's what I set about to do, and that's what I then created this lifestyle financial planning, what I call 7-step success system, which is my Inspiring Advisors training course membership is all based on. And quite simply, this funnel then represents up here that these are different shapes and sizes of clients we all come across from time to time. I'm sure you yourself out there in the marketplace, there are thousands of different people who might want financial advice at some time or another. For example, we could have clients over here with lots of money we could have to invest. We could have some clients over here with little or no money to invest. We've got clients here who happily will pay fees for financial advice and financial planning. Got clients up here who would never pay a fee for financial planning and financial advice because they just feel you should only get commission and bring back commission, even though it's been banned in the UK. They'd rather pay commission and would never pay a fee. We've got clients here who want a mortgage. We've got clients here who want some from a specialist investment fund that you've now got to go and swat up on. You've got clients here who have been referred by an accountant. You've got clients here that have been referred by an existing client, and you've got clients here that found you on LinkedIn or Facebook or the internet. So the reason why I mention that is you've got all these different clients here, and to be honest with you, if you're not careful, they can kill you. That's what I noticed. You can be killed by all these different people out there messing with your head, messing with your systems, messing with your processes. And I thought that's not going to happen to me because life's too short. It's not a rehearsal, right? So I created this funnel on the basis that you got to let people in, okay? Because until you have a conversation with somebody, you never know, do you, about whether they would be a good client, whether they've got the affordability to pay your fees, whether you want them in your life or not. They could have all the money in the world, but if I don't like them, they're not going to take up any of my life, you know, and in the same way around. Sometimes you take on clients who don't pay you quite enough, but you just love meeting with them. And as long as that's not a habit and you have too many unprofitable clients, that's okay within reason. So I always feel you got to let people in. You got to try and somehow sort the wheat from the chaff, yes, but you let people in. But then when they're in, you've got to follow your process. You can't do it how they want to do it because, as I say, that will kill you, trying to cater for all these different ways of operating. So my way of doing it is create this system that's easy to deliver, it's proven, and it's step by step, hence the 7-step success system. So the first thing is they come into your life for a first meeting, okay? And therefore that first meeting is hat 1, it's life planning. So you're not going to talk about this stuff. You can't, because that will break the rules, okay? So this first meeting then has got to be a consistent meeting that you have with clients. Every client's different, of course, so therefore your process needs to be uniform. And the first question on my little, where's the pen gone? What you're talking about there is this very first question, okay? When they come into your life, however they've been introduced, I want to try and use a similar question or statement with every single client that comes in. Bearing in mind they could have come from all different sources. And then after that first question, right, after that very first question, right, everything from thereafter is going to be exactly the same. That's the power of that first question, okay? So the first question I would do, let's say they've been introduced to me by their accountant, okay? So they might come into me and I'd sit them down, we'd have the coffee and so on, and I would simply say to them, tell me, Michael, I understand you've been introduced to us by John, your accountant. Is that correct? Yes. Can I ask you, Michael, what has John told you about who we are and what we do? And then I would just shut up. Okay. Then they would tell me what they understand I do based on what Michael has John has told them, their accountant. And then I would say to them, well, it's great that you've been introduced to us by your accountant. We do work primarily on referrals and we work closely with accountants. But to be honest with you, Michael, at this stage, although John has recommended you, I can't guarantee at this stage whether or not we can be of any interest or benefit to you. So the purpose of this first meeting is to find out a little bit more about you, about where you are in your life right now and where you're trying to get to. In the next hour or so, you'll also find out a little bit more about how we operate, and then you'll be in a position to make a decision whether you wish to go any further with us or not. Is that okay with you? Okay. Then I would explain to them. They would normally say, "Great, Paul, that's fine." Then I would say to them, in this meeting, then I'll be going for my confidential questionnaire, where I'll be asking the right questions in the right order to find out a lot more about where you are and where you're trying to get to. If at the end of this meeting you don't wish to go any further with us, you can simply have this questionnaire back and destroy it. Is that okay with you? And the client would always say, of course it's okay with me. Great. Now that puts me in control and I can now start asking questions that I want to ask in the order I want to ask them because of that opening statement. Does that make sense? Whereas too many times a client comes in saying, I want to talk about pensions or investments. And then the advisor starts talking about investments by saying things like, what do you want to know? Well, how can I help you? What are you looking for? What sort of return do you want? Da, 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 da. And it's too late then. You've now lost control and you're now talking about what the client wants to talk about rather than sticking to your process. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
So run that past you again with another client comes in, let's say. Let's say a client comes in who's been referred. Let's say a client comes in saying they're looking for some investment advice, okay? Client comes in, hi John, nice to meet you. I understand you're looking for some investment advice, is that correct? Yes, Paul. Well, we do investments, and to be honest with you though, today's meeting is not about investments. In fact, at this stage, I can't guarantee whether or not it can be of any interest or benefit to you. So the purpose of this meeting is to find out a little bit more about you, where you are in your life right now, and where you're trying to get to. In the course of this next hour, then, you'll also find out a little bit about us and how we operate. So then, in an hour, you'll be in a position to decide whether you want to go any further with us or not. Is that okay with you? Okay? So it's basically the same script, but tailored for someone wanting a specific thing. Now, what that means is, now I've got them into this funnel, this can now happen, and that can now happen, and that can now happen, and that can now happen. And it all leads then through to this big finish here, where I pitch my proposition and ask if they want to go any further with us. And normally it's, well, why don't all financial advisors do this? You see? So that's the power of this funnel. You drive them down your way of doing things, which means you become super efficient. It also means that your back office team really understand what it is that you deliver. So they know what you've done in that first meeting. They now know what they've got to prepare ready for the second meeting. And when expenditure questionnaires will come back to you and all those things that still have to be done. I hope that helps.
Thank you. That's great.
Okay. By the way, if anybody, Michael, is it okay to mention this 7-step success system thing that I've got?
Absolutely, Paul, please.
Okay. So this, as I'm laying this out here, I've basically been using this for many, many years. It works. It's transformed my life. It enabled me to retire early, buy a lovely boat, and basically it's sort of helped me. A lot of advisors were then asking me how I did it, and therefore could I help them? So I started doing workshops and training and things. But then in the end, I decided to put it all into an online training program, a membership group called Inspiring Advisors. So I've got this online membership portal where I break down all of this here into bite-sized videos where I basically show you what to say, show you what to say, how to say it, when to say it, and so on, so that then you can really nail the delivery of this 3-hatted lifestyle financial planning service proposition. And it's called Inspiring Advisors then. So what I'm doing at the moment, I've said to Michael that I've got a number of members in Canada already and they're having great success with it. I think 1 or 2 already mentioned that, which is great. So what I'm going to do, if anyone on this call is interested, I will happily send to you a copy of my 2 books here. This one's called Enough, and that's the advisor marketing tool. It's designed for you to give to prospective clients. By the way, accountants love this. So if you've got accountants that you work with, you can get your accountant introducers giving this to their best clients and basically recommending that you, the advisor, can help them to get this service. And that's the 7 Habits of Highly Successful Financial Planners that I wrote, which talks about this stuff here as well, albeit, again, it's just introducing you to it. And then also, so I'll send you those, and I'll give you a free month of membership of Inspiring Advisors to see if you like it. If you do like it, then you can simply stay a member. It's £95 English pounds per month thereafter, if you like it. And my view is that if you use this stuff, you'll get back your investment thousands of times over. Just one client will repay your membership for years and years, as has happened to a number of people in Canada already, which is great. So I think I've mentioned on my slide, if you go to PFS, let me share my screen with you again if I can. Okay, yeah, there's a link there. Look, www.pfsoffer.co.uk. If you go there, you'll get access to this special offer. All I ask you to do is help me out with the shipping, and it's normally £395 to send to the UK, but I can't be bothered to change the order form, so it's £395 to deliver to Canada as well, which costs us a lot more than that, but that's the offer. So if you go to www.pfsoffer.co.uk, you can get the books and a free trial of Inspiring Advisors and the 7-step success system to check it out. And I hope that you can put the stuff to great use. So that's that. Any other questions?
I don't see any. Thanks for sharing that last screen. I think that was an aerial view of your boat, wasn't it?
Yeah, do you want to see it again?
Yeah.
The British Virgin Islands, I think it is. Yeah, it is. I remember.
Does anyone else have any questions? If not, hopefully we have recorded this and we will be posting it on our YouTube channel. Next week, I'll be doing another webinar and I'll be showing VisionWorks, but I'm also going to be introducing a whole new feature that we refer to as real time. And it's designed to help you very effectively do the financial planning part interactively with your client. So we're really looking forward to this upcoming release and would invite you, if at all possible, to join us next week. Paul, do you have any final comments that you'd like to make?
No, well, thank you very much indeed for asking me to share some of these ideas. Hopefully you can see that I'm passionate about it. But clearly what we've got the opportunity to change people's lives with proper financial planning. I say proper. Again, some people don't like me saying that, but I say it anyway, because we need to ensure that if we are financial planners, then we do this. That is proper financial planning. Hopefully everyone on this call can agree there. How can we possibly do financial planning until we know about our client? And how can we do any form of financial product until we've done proper financial planning? That's how I see it. That first, that second, and then if necessary. So just to recap one thing, if you just try this over the next few days, if you say to a client, this is how you do your job, 3 hats, right? It's all about you first. Until I know about you, I've got no right to talk about your money or tell you what to do with it. That's honestly a trust builder straight away. Then you'll do some financial planning. And then if you need a financial product, if you do, then and only then will I put on my 3rd and least important hat. And we can take care of that elegantly. Don't worry about that. But it all starts here. It all starts with understanding and helping you to get and keep the life that you want.
Thank you again, Paul. It was just great.
My pleasure. Thanks very much indeed. Thanks for everybody for tuning in, and I hope you found it useful.
Thank you so much.